Alright everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Game Clinic presented by the Noob Stream, where we go over games and replays together to try and help players find ways to improve or optimize their play. For this second episode with me is going to be Spartacus playing Lina.
Oh, hello guys. I'm Spartacus. I'm playing Lina. I've been playing Dota for like a year or so. Dota 2. I've been playing Dota 2 for a year or so. But I've been playing Dota 1 in let's say 6 to 8 months time frame.
Oh, awesome, so
And
you do
yeah.
have some experience from the older game.
Yeah.
Alright, so go ahead and press play in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so how did the lineups? This was an all-pick game and it was unranked. So is Lina a hero you frequently play, or you just decided to pick and play her?
I think like moderately. I don't pick her all the time though.
Okay, and you're headed. It looks like you're headed. Are you headed bottom lane here?
Yep, I'm at the bottom.
Okay, so when you play Lina, Lina is usually seen as a support hero. Her spells, she does a ton of burst damage and nuke, and she has an AoE stun, light strike array that's like a skill shot. It's a bit harder to hit. So whether or not you can hit that is largely going to determine how effective you are on the hero. She has a Dragon Slave, which is a nuke that goes out in a cone and does AoE damage. So there's a lot of AoE from her, but you have to kind of aim her spells, so she's pretty fun to play. Her passive is very interesting. Fiery Soul, what it does is each time she casts a spell, it stacks her attack and move speed up to 3 stacks, which maxes 255% increased attack speed. So this gives Lina some sneaky carry potential. It doesn't make her a great carry, but it allows her to do that and to dish out a bit more damage from auto attacks when her spells are down, because each of her stacks lasts for up to 9 seconds. So this gives her a surprising amount of damage compared to many other support heroes. And of course, Laguna Blade, the big ult to the face, it does direct damage. If you get the Aghanim Scepter on it, which has recently been upgraded, it actually ends up doing pure damage. And it cannot be disjointed, but one small detail about Laguna Blade is the damage isn't applied until a quarter of a second after it's been cast. So it actually is possible for you to go invis or do some kind of other evasion thing to avoid getting the damage, but you have to do it super quick. Usually you have to have casted it before the Laguna Blade's on you. So you're here bottom with your buddy SPX Deep. What are you thinking in this lane? You're up against, looks like Luna and Windrunner as the Lina. What are your thoughts so far?
I was gonna play a support. I'll support him in this lane, but the things have been like harassing him so hard, so he couldn't farm well. So I had to try and farm and get them.
Okay, so did you talk with your lane mate here and talk about what your goals are for the lane, or are you going to try to kill them at a certain level, or who's going to get the farm? Did you discuss that with Deep at all?
No, I didn't tell them, but when I get like, I think it was level 3 or something, we tried to kill Luna.
Okay, so that's an important thing for newer players to take note of. Often in lanes, you don't get your most powerful spells or to a critical level until level 3 or level 2, and that's when you have enough damage usually to kill someone. So this goes back all the way to the Dota 1 days, where usually you'll see like lanes with combinations or spells, and they'll say, hey, at level 3 we'll go on this person. In this case, there is a nice ward here. It's a ward for you players looking to play competitively or something, or even not in casual games, to learn about. It gives you vision and it blocks the pole camp. As you see, one of the first fights of the game breaking out, they're rotating the Avenge down here. So yeah, this is a great ward. It like absolutely blocks that pole camp, and of course it gives you vision on anybody who's rotating, although you won't be able to see them if they're smoked or if they rotate from up here.
Yeah.
So early in the lane phase, everybody's just getting some farm, looks like trading some harass. One other thing to point out about Lina is this was also recently buffed, but she has an extremely long attack range, 670. I believe it's the longest attack range in the game, so she's incredibly good at harassing in lane. Every time she attacks, she can cancel the animation because she does have a long animation. So you can attack, walk back, and it makes her very annoying to deal
Yeah.
with in lane.
This area here is like Deep was trying to go around because I was pinging on Luna, but suddenly Venge came and so that destroyed our plan.
Yeah, and that's a good adjustment there. That's obviously, one thing that more experienced players will learn is to avoid tunnel vision and react to what the situation calls for. So you may have been planning to go on the Luna, but obviously those plans were interrupted. In this lane, it's not going to be too easy to get kills, as you see there. Deep pushes him out with the cogs because neither of you have a great setup at this level. Like, you basically have to skill shot your stun and anticipating when she comes up to hit it. You can't just walk up to them and expect them to stand there for the stun or the cogs from the clockwork. So I think you've done a pretty good job so far, even though Luna has a large damage boost from her Lunar Blessing. You've done a good job of harassing and picking up a few last hits and slowing them down a little bit. Luna does have only 8 last hits in 4 minutes, so I would count that as a pretty good win for your lane. So in terms of rotations and stuff, what are you thinking on that level? Are you gonna plan gank, or how do you make that decision usually?
Could you?
I think I roamed when I was level 6.
Not enough for you.
I tried to roam, I guess. I couldn't really remember this game, but it was yesterday.
I see. So you picked up a nice double kill there, like, doing a good amount of burst damage, having that point in your passive, helping you get out those early auto attacks. So that was pretty nice, and it gives you a lead and an edge in this lane. So what are you thinking about item-wise, and where you're gonna go from there?
I'm taking Yules. It gives me a movement speed and like a secure stun because I Yules him and wait for like 2 seconds, and I use my stun because my stun has a delay of 0.5 seconds. And here, Deep,
Doesn't it?
we had a miscommunication with Deep there because I was like doing something and he dived in.
Okay. Yeah, you did start with that early Sage's Mask, so it did seem pretty clear that you were going into Yule's. A couple things to point out here for items. Getting mana regen early on, I mean, it's okay, but your base mana regen and your base intelligence are not very high early on, and you'll see Voidstone and Sage's Mask are both percentage mana regeneration, so they do give you some decent regen, but it might not be as useful early on, depending on the situation, as getting stats items. Like, let's say, like a magic stick, or maybe the Staff of Wizardry component of your Yules first, because you want that raw mana pool instead of the regen. The regen's going to take a while to kick in. Like, at 4 mana regen
Denied.
generated per second, it's going to take you about 20 seconds, more than 20 seconds to get one of your spells up. So it does help you a bit, but sometimes you just want more of a raw mana pool. But it looks like you're doing pretty well in lane here, so that's not really an issue yet.
So yeah, like I was saying earlier, I was letting Deep take the last hits of the hero kill, but it was like when we tried to kill them, he died also. I mean, like a payment.
So I know you and Deep are teammates, but if you're playing with someone who is not your teammate and they're doing something that maybe you don't want them to do or them to be careful about, what's your strategy usually in games with, let's say, ranked games with strangers as teammates?
But first, I was letting them do the talk, like let them lead. I mean, let them lead me. But when they don't talk, I'll try to talk to them.
Okay, that's a pretty good way of going about it. I mean, in a lot of pub games, people getting angry and raging is an issue, so being able to deal with that is usually pretty important to manage the morale of your lanes and how the game goes. I also want to point out one other thing here. Your Skywrath Mage is soloing mid, So depending on who the solo mid is, or who the complementary hero is, that can determine whether or not you want to rotate and gank. And in this case, Irath is a very good complement to your ganking because he has that silence which amplifies magic damage, and he has his own slow, so he can help set you up for ganks. So you guys are doing a good job down here, and you're keeping the carry down, which is important to do as a support. But also, if you look to see who is your mid and whether they can partner with you well on ganks, that can also affect your decision making.
Here, I was like trying to go aggro on them, but in the map you can see Pudge is coming. Our mid didn't call it, and we were unaware that Pudge was coming, and that that destroyed our plan.
Yeah, and there isn't a ward down there either, so that definitely turned out pretty disastrously.
Yeah.
I'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, and we're back. So there's an unfortunate death slowing you down a little bit there. I'm not sure if stats items would
No,
have
you
saved you
don't.
there. So when you think about going builds, you mentioned the Yule Scepter, which is pretty good because it gives you mana regen and allows you to set up your own stun. What else are you thinking in terms of when do you get boots and movement speed and things like that as you pick up another kill here, it looks like, on the Luna?
Well done.
Uh, I was going like on. I decided on like 12-minute mark on what should I be, like a core support or to be a hard carry. So when I checked my teammates, they're like pure. I mean, so soft, especially Skyrat and Shadow Shaman. So no one could tank Weaver and Luna in late game. So only Slark. I keep telling Slark like build a hard carry stuffs. So when I reach like a point, I mean when I reach on a point on a map, I decided to go on the treads instead of going arcane boots or something else.
Okay, so I love the thought process there. That's an interesting adjustment. Usually you'll see Lina's pick up a arcane boots because obviously it gives them more mana and some instant regen. But that's considering the overall big picture there, which is a good thing that you want to be thinking about. Getting treads on Lina, I mean, the attack speed isn't as important for her, but having those extra stats can be a pretty huge boost, especially in these early fights where the enemy has a solid amount of burst damage. So I think that's a good decision there. You might have been able to pick up your treads already or sooner before these other regen items. And of course, you can toggle the treads so that you get more mana. But I think that's a good big picture decision that you made. And then items, items aren't usually cut and dried. That's the thing about item choices. You can follow a guide and use that, but more often than not, you want to be adjusting during the game in terms of what items you choose and adjusting to the situation. So I think that's pretty good for you there as you're waiting here in the fog, looks like, and they're going to go after you.
Yeah, I was trying to set up a stun for them. I mean for deep, but then I realized you can see that part there. I mean, yeah. So yeah,
Go ahead.
I was I was talking to. I mean, me and Deep were arguing in late game that I should build. Oh, we'll just talk about it later.
Okay.
I'll just tell you, man.
Alright, sure. And I just want to turn on the fog of war just now. The reason for that is what I like what you were doing and what Pudge is doing right now is one of the things that I find heroes make a mistake on, no matter what hero they are, as we see this Pudge is gonna hook in the clockwork but not finish him off, is using the fog of war. So both where the Pudge was hiding just now and where the Lina was hiding earlier, it's in the fog so that enemies can't see you, and sometimes you being off the map so they can't see you is better than you showing where you are. As in, you do a good job there of bursting down the Luna very quickly so that her ultimate can't do any more damage and there can't be any more follow-up. So yeah, Laguna Blade, you used it very well there to make sure that you killed the hero you were targeting. I see misuse of the spell a lot in games where you'll see people using it to secure the last hit on like a 40 HP hero or something, you know, to make sure they get the kill. What it does is, when you use it early, it not only is more efficient so that you don't waste the damage on it, but it can also signal to your team very quickly who you're going on and who you're trying to kill. So you want to be as efficient with your spells as possible. You don't want to be wasting them when you don't need them, but you also want to be able to immediately burst down heroes without giving them a chance to cast more spells. So that was a nice use there. Back to what I was saying about the Fog of War, is that being off the map for your enemy, try to think about what your enemy sees and what information they have to make their decisions. If you're off the map, then heroes elsewhere on the map have to worry about where you are. They have to think about where you are. In some cases, they may walk into an ambush by not knowing that you're there. So, better players will always make efficient use of that fog. If you can't see them, or if you, they'll make so that you can't see them as much as possible. You don't know what their plans are unless they're farming or very blatantly pushing a tower.
So yeah, and what you've said in laning phase, so I needed more stats than mana base region.
Yeah, I believe that that's usually a good decision to go. I mean, you have full mana right now. One other thing I want to mention is that you haven't really left your lane, and that's not a big issue because there's been plenty of action down there and there's a lot of heroes rotating, so you have been at the center of the action most of the time. It looks like, are you able to save? Oh, there's your Yules. A very nice combo there. You used him up and then hit the stun on him and allowed your team to burst him down. So that was nice. Using item synergies to help your hero be more effective. Yules is just good in general, as you mentioned, for the move speed, but it also sets you up very well.
Dire's middle tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified.
Yeah, that part. I was like pinging them that someone's porting in, and I think it was Weaver because we argued about that, about my ult, because I ulted so early because they aren't there yet. So when I ulted, he time lapsed. I told them that I used my ult so he can time lapse to where he went, because he was at top, so he couldn't join the team fights and scramble around, and we took the tower, but it got denied. Yeah, but it got denied by Wind Ranger.
Okay, so that's really interesting. That's kind of like a next level play there, which is you know that the Weaver ultimate takes him back to where he was a few seconds ago. So by ulting him, you force him into a choice. Although he might not have died because he's pretty tanky. He has a Ring of Aquila and an ultimate orb already, as his Linken's is almost done. You force him into a choice, right? You either stay here with like low health, half health, and stay around and possibly let my allies kill you, or you time lapse back to top and then you lose one defender of that bottom tower, which was being sieged by the Serpent Wards from the Rasta. But ultimately, of course, it ended up getting denied because they had more numbers there than you did.
Yeah. If we fight that, we would likely to die because we didn't have that pure disable to them, because Shadow Shaman was too far ahead, and he was running low, and we couldn't kill Weaver so early on. We have no answers for him early, but when Skyrat could silence her, we couldn't kill him with my ult and Deep's hook.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the thing. One of the things about Weaver is he's very slippery and hard to kill, and you need to chain together multiple disables usually and burst damage to kill him. And you do have a lot of those resources on your team. You have 2 disables from the Shadow Shaman, you have a silence from the Skywrath, burst damage from you as you get hooked here by the Pudge, and immediately Yules yourself. That was a good try there to save yourself. And you know, of course, the Yule Scepter can be used on yourself. The quickest way to do it is whatever hotkey you assign the item slot to quickly press it twice, and then it'll end up using yourself. into the air. And if you pair that later with a blink dagger, which I'm not sure if you did you get a blink dagger
Yeah,
this game?
yeah, I get the blink dagger.
Okay. What happens is, since you're up in the air for 2.5 seconds, and blink dagger has a 3-second damage kind of reset, then if you haven't taken damage for about half a second, you can use yourself and then have your blink back up by the time you're done. You can actually use shift to cue the blink afterwards. So it's a pretty nifty little escape mechanism that'll get you out of some situations, and it just adds a whole lot of utility to your hero, makes her annoying to kill, makes her self-sufficient in setting up her own abilities, and it's just a good pickup overall.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of players going on the Yules, so I tried it myself.
So a couple notes on that last fight there. You did try to burst down the Pudge, which I saw, and he managed to deny himself. He actually does not have Flesh Heap yet, although you have no way of knowing that. So in that situation, when you have a hero who can deny himself, like Pudge, that might be a situation where it's okay for you to wait a little bit longer to use your ult to make sure that you get him so he doesn't kill himself. Additionally, I want to point out your build, as we see the skirmish continues here in mid. You decided to go for more points in Fiery Soul instead of Light Strike Array. Can you talk about that?
Oh yeah, on this part, when I told you, I decided to going on like a hard carry hitter, Lina.
Dyer's bottom tower
But here
is under
I
attack.
think I'm building my treads here than before after my dagger,
Mhm.
because I really need my dagger for escaping stuffs.
Okay, so this is a decision that you'll see people grapple with. I think most Lina players, if you're doing any kind of support role and you don't feel the need to transition into carry, then obviously you wouldn't be maxing Fiery Soul. And you'd be maxing the Light Strike Array because it does increase your stun duration and increase the damage too, up from 90 to 280, so that's a lot of damage.
Burn, baby, burn.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just an in-game decision that you made. Again, I want to say that Lina is a pretty versatile hero, and she can wear a number of different hats, so I wouldn't commit to one build or the other. I just think most of the time you see her in more of a support role, so they won't be maxing Fiery Soul, although they'll be putting 1 point in it early because the attack speed is nice for those skirmishes, as is the move speed. So this kind of commits your build here. You basically maxed Fiery Soul before even putting a second point in Light Strike Array. I'm not sure if I entirely agree with this decision, because this game you do have a lot of setup for your Light Strike Array. Like, let's consider that your first item was a Yule's, right? And the whole point of that is to set up your stun. So you have setup for a stun that isn't doing that much. Also, for like an attack hero, you only have a Bracer right now, so you're kind of squishy as an attack hero. Like, you can't be standing in the front lines and attacking that much, even though you have Fiery Soul maxed, because of how much HP and stuff you have. So maybe you could have optimized the decision a little better in terms of your item choice to go with it, but it's something to just think about if you make that decision in the future on Lina.
Okay. So yeah, I built Racer because I'm gonna transition it into drums,
Mhm.
so I could have the attack speed and movement speed,
Tower is under attack.
and yeah.
Okay, so that's another good thing that I like that you're doing is kind of thinking about synergies on a hero. So the drums gives you move speed, the stacks from Fiery Soul gives you move speed, the Yules gives you move speed. So you end up just moving around very quickly, being hard to track down, and of course speed is in itself a survival mechanism, right? If you're fast, or if you come out of nowhere, or if you run away, it makes it harder for them to kill you. So I like that choice that you're thinking about in terms of synergies there.
Dyer's middle tower has been
Yeah.
denied.
We're getting cranky here. Dude, it's like an all five fight.
Yeah. And
Here.
it looks like, wow, that cog barely saved you right there, pushed the Weaver
Yeah.
away as he was about to kill you. But yeah, you guys are in a tough situation right now because it looks like your main carry, the Slark, doesn't really have anything. So you don't have anybody who can hold the front line well. Clockwork does a decent job, but Clockwork is also pretty easy to kill. He doesn't yet have his Blade Mail. All your other heroes are pretty squishy. Shadow Shaman, yourself, Skywrath, you all die pretty easily, and they have some slippery heroes with high burst. Luna has a lot of burst damage, especially with her ult.
Dire's middle
Obviously,
tower
the
is
stuns
under
coming out from
attack.
Windrunner and Venge,
Dire locked
and of
down
course,
their
Weaver
structures.
just is incredibly hard to kill. So, what are you thinking about at this point in the game, or what are you telling your teammates about what you should do? Are you saying, we shouldn't fight unless it's like this, or what are you talking about with your teammates right now?
I was telling them to farm, especially Slark, because we don't have that really much tank
Dire's top
hero except
tower is under
Slark and
attack.
Clock. But Clock's items just like
Haste.
not yet on Blade Mail, so he couldn't really tank yet. And Slark too is squishy, have 900 base HP.
Hmm.
So yeah, Clock is more tankier than him. So that's why I told him to like build stats type or HP type item.
Okay, so yeah, people will react to this differently, but because most of the time, depending on how you say it, people might get pissed and say, "Play your own game" or "Don't tell me what to do." That's one of the things about this game, right? Everyone's in these games is very proud usually, and very, it's about you can't tell them anything and stuff. And of course, you shouldn't use that tone of trying to tell them because they'd be less receptive to it. But yeah, it's good to communicate with your teammates and try to make sure that you're on the same page, or figure out when you feel you can and cannot fight, under what conditions, and what general direction you want to be headed towards in the game. You guys have pretty good ward coverage. It looks like you've got a ward in their mid, you've got a ward in their jungle. So you guys do have the map vision to play kind of a careful style and maybe bait them into bad fights and stuff. So I do like that part of the game. Were you asked to get wards this game, or did you end up buying any wards, or did the Shadow Shaman basically take care of that?
Yeah, I told Shadow Shaman to be a core support. I mean, like total support, and I told him to where to place the wards, cause he been placing it the same time and top rune and bottom rune, no lane wards, no stuffs. So I told him where. I pinged the areas. I pinged the areas for him. Yeah.
I see.
Radiant's top tower has fallen.
So how do you usually decide, as a support player, where the wards go? Can you walk us through that thought process?
When we're like ahead, when you can see in the scoreboard, we're ahead a little bit, but we're
Dire's
totally
bottom tower is under
like
attack.
level with them. It's almost the same. Like that's 1824 right now. So I placed them like semi aggressively, like this radiant jungle ward. Look,
Hmm.
there's one there, then there's
Dire's
another
bottom
rune ward
tower is
here.
under attack.
What I really wanted to have is lane ward in mid, especially between tier 2 and tier 1, so we can see them. Lane ward in mid,
Hmm.
jungle ward, and ancient ward. That would work, but yeah.
Okay, one thing I want to point out here is lane ward that he mentions is a highly underrated ward that I don't see nearly enough in games. I mean, usually you'll see people placing wards on the obligatory spots marked with like eyes and stuff, or like the recommended spots. But the lane ward is a hugely undervalued ward, especially for areas of early contention where you're going to be fighting. For example, if there's a lane ward down here behind the tower, you could see who is TPing in to assist them, where the heroes in the lane are. And then if you have this lane ward on mid, I mean, mid is like an entry point to a lot of what's. You could see people coming in and out of the mid near the tier 1 tower. You could see their traffic and their movement, and it just gives you so much value information. It also helps you when you're fighting in lane solo because it'll give you uphill vision if needed. So lane wards are an undervalued asset that I don't see people use enough, and it's good that you recommended that, and I'm glad that this guy took your recommendation on that.
Yeah. The only problem is he gets rewarded like this Venge here. Venge rewarded his wards,
Dire's
but he
bottom
keeps
tower
placing
is
them
under
on the same
attack.
spot again.
Yeah, that's one other thing to look out for too. And there's a lot of counterplay and decisions that you can make with wards, right? One thing that I like to do sometimes is, if you know that an enemy has a ward somewhere, you don't immediately deward it or pretend that you don't know about it. And that can be used to occasionally bait your enemy into some bad decisions because you know that they have a ward. That information doesn't need to be revealed immediately, or if you're in a position in the game where you can't fight them for control of that ward, then you definitely don't want to deward it because then they'll be like, oh, you're contesting me for this and you can't fight us, let's just get rid of your ward, and then you're blind there. So sometimes it's actually better if you're in a position where you can't fight it or can get a bait out of it to just let the ward stay there and pretend that you don't know about it.
Okay, I know. I got that.
So one other thing I want to point out here is you've kind of transitioned into a farming mode. You do have your blink dagger, but it looks like the action has cooled down for the last few minutes. In terms of item progression, I mean, the blink is pretty much... I consider the blink more or less a core item on Lina so that you can get in and out of engagements, especially when it's comboed with the Yule Scepter, or like surprise people by blinking in and stunning them from out of vision, as we mentioned earlier. But in terms of farming efficiency, I mean, you want to be just stacking camps as often as you can to get more gold out of the map, and if you are going for a farming build, you might want to consider getting that treads or finishing that drum sooner, just so it gives you more stats and attack speed and nukes, versus getting the blink and not necessarily fighting much out of it. So maybe you didn't need it at that point, although it does let you move around faster because you can use the cooldown to blink.
Uh-huh. So yeah, in this part, the Weaver was like a big threat to me because I have my Blink and he have the Radiance already, and he have Lincolns too.
Hmm.
So it was so lucky that they killed Weaver in that bottom tier 2.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to point out about that Lincolns, which obviously can counter your Laguna Blade, is you can
Radiant's
use
top
smaller
tower is
items or
under
skills
attack.
to pop Lincolns. So some skills that you can use, for example, like Lion's Mana Drain, things that have a very short cooldown and aren't necessarily that consequential during a fight. But in this case for you, this is possible, although not necessarily you'll want to do it, but you can use your Yule Scepter to pop the Lincolns, and if your enemies have immobilized the Weaver or caught him in place, then you can use that to pop the Lincolns and then Laguna Blade him right afterwards.
Killing spree.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say to Skyrat Mage, like I use first, and he uses silence because they amplify damage, and I use my ult and would burn down the HP of Weaver so fast.
Yeah, and just a tough fight there. I mean, obviously tower diving
Dire's middle
usually
tower is
isn't a
under
great
attack.
idea if you're not far ahead or if you're not
Down
taking a
destitution.
decisive edge or a decisive objective that you're about to get. And that one was pretty costly. You guys lost 3 heroes for just a pudge.
Dire's middle
They
tower
responded, you
has
turned things around, you
fallen.
lost a tier 2 tower out of it, so that was tough to do there. One of the harder things in pub games, I think, in games with strangers, is being on the same page when it comes to retreating or taking fights or not taking fights. Sometimes people will get mad if you don't join them in a fight, even though it's clearly like a bad idea, and they'll be like, "Oh, why you're such a noob? Why didn't you come with us?" And then they might get upset. But you still have to keep your cool and make the right decisions. How do you deal with that usually if your teammates have some friction about a situation or decision that you made?
Oh, I'll just tell them to like relax. We got this. It haven't ended yet. It's still 30 minutes of the game. They didn't took the racks yet. We can still come back. We just have to get our shit together.
All right, and I know you're the captain of a team, so you know you have to manage this quite often, morale and keeping everybody on the same page. But that's a good approach right there when you're playing with strangers. You can. It's very easy to fall into this trap of flaming them and getting mad, and I even do this sometimes. I mean, those is a pretty frustrating game. Any game where you have expectations for the other players on your team, and those are always not or frequently not met, is going to be frustrating. But as a captain, as a leader, or even if they won't accept you as a leader, as someone who's helping the team win, you got to try to keep the positives and keep your teammates motivated. So I like that bit there coming from Captain Spartacus.
So yeah, at this point, I'm building tank items after I'm getting treads on this one.
Mhm.
I'm getting treads when I get 950. After I get treads, I'm going to heart of the Ras, so I could tank them.
I see. I might have suggested this, although you might not have had any way of knowing beforehand. But since you're playing Lina and your attack speed is a big part of your boost, and this is a game that ended up not having much action here as you get the kill on the Windrunner, you might have wanted to get some kind of greed item that synergizes well with your attack speed. For example, if you get something that has a proc, like if you have like Maelstrom, or like as like a farming item, it's absolutely amazing, and it does really well since you're maxing Fiery Soul.
Double kill.
So you get it to attack really fast, get procs, get a ton of damage out of it. So I might have suggested that you get something like that if you're going to farm as a carry Lina. But I mean, you can't always diagnose when you're getting your core items or important items how a game's going to go, what direction it's going to go in. It's quite possible that if you did end up getting that Maelstrom, they would feel safer fighting because you don't have the Yules, and you guys would get pushed even harder. It's hard to say. But in terms of carry items, what are you thinking of going later on if you're going for
Dire's
damage?
middle tower is under attack.
In damage, I'm taking the armor reduction, Desolator, and Cuirass. I built Cuirass because they're like almost all physical, especially Weaver and Luna. So I need my armor and my HP. I was in the front lines in like later part of the game.
Okay, so that's an excellent point there. Your hero, most heroes have an ideal position that they want to fight from. Usually Lina is not too close to the front line, although she needs to be in attack range to maximize her Fiery Soul.
Dire's top
But this game,
tower
you
is
identified
under
that you
attack.
guys don't really have any meaty heroes, so getting armor later on is going to help you deal with the tremendous amount of physical damage coming out from the other team. I would have liked to see you get some kind of trigger item, like either, I'm not sure if you'll be getting it this game, but like a Daedalus, or maybe Mjolnir, as I mentioned, or even some kind of lifesteal, because your fast attack speed just makes those items that much better. Like your chance of critting is really high if you're just constantly attacking. I mean, your chance is the same, but you just get more crits in general, as we see you using your blink and Yules to set up a kill here.
Oh yeah, that part there, I coulda Laguna Blade directly Wind Ranger, but I was waiting for it. Then Venge swapped her, so that costly for my part. But he died in the end though.
Yeah, you guys did end up coming out pretty well there, and you saved your Laguna Blade on a hero that was guaranteed to be dead. I like that part. You didn't actually need it there on the Weaver either, but again, that's a good play that comes out of experience and not being too greedy and being efficient. If you don't need to use a spell to kill someone, then you can just go ahead and save it for a better situation that might come up immediately. And sometimes, if you did use that Laguna Blade, the other team in a different situation might say, hey, Laguna is down, there's less damage coming out, let's go back in. That could easily catalyze the other team deciding to fight. So a spell in reserve, a spell not committed, is often quite valuable as well. And it looks like you're going to get to use it here. Yep.
Yeah.
Tower is under attack.
There we go, that decision paid off. You had the Laguna Blade for the Luna in their follow-up fight, and that ended up working out for you. So it's nice to see you make that decision and have the investment pay off.
Radiant's middle tower has fallen. Radiant's bottom
Yeah,
tower
back
is
to
under
the item wise. I mean, back to my item. Like what I say, I was building hard. The thing you said about proc items, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about Mjolnir. I'm gonna use it, but
Radiant's bottom
I
tower
I
is under
realized that
Looks like
we really
your
need
closed
more
stores.
AOE armor and I need my HP. That's why I took the heart. So yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the proc item, Mjolnir has a small added bonus of being able to, you can put it on your Slark or on yourself. Of course, it'll return physical damage, and they do have a lot of physical damage. But yeah, being tanky is pretty important. They have armor reduction on several of their heroes. The Venge, of course, with her Wave of Terror reduces your armor, and the bugs from the Weaver, the Swarm, also reduces your armor. So having armor is pretty important to save you from the Luna and the right clicks from the Weaver, Luna, and anybody else on their team. So yeah, I mean, I just like that you're thinking in terms of the game itself and making decisions, and that's one of the signs of a better player. They don't stick to certain builds. They really just get what the situation calls for. A really nice fight here. You get them trapped in the cogs by Deep. He uses Blade Mail, which does a ton of damage, and looks like he's about to have his hook back up too, so he can get back into this fight if need be.
Yeah, this was the right moment because Luna's BKB was down. I was trying to go around him, but he went the other way. Yeah, and here,
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
yeah, he escaped. And here, I think I died or I survived. Yeah, I survived this area here.
There's that move speed coming in. You were going at like 450 for a second with all those stacks, and so yeah, that move speed saved you there.
That's a miscommunication. Deep thought I was like dying. I mean, I'm almost dead, so he tried to save me. And when I told him I was fine, and he casted the hook already.
You were an ugly one.
I see.
Dominating.
But we did see that move speed build paying off. I think in that fight back there, you could have come back into it a little bit sooner because your teammates were kind of keeping them busy. But then it was like a tempo thing. Like when you entered back into the fight, your teammates had already left. So yeah, a bit of miscommunication and also a bit of timing. Usually when your opponent is distracted, it's a good time to go in and do your damage when you're on a squishier hero. One other thing that I want to point out that you were doing there, that the situation kind of forced into it, is you're coming from a different direction, right? A lot of times you'll see in these team fights, people come from the front, and it's like a clear frontal fight. And like that's like some like Revolutionary War thing where everybody, you know, meets up at the same time and like, you know, they get muskets and they just go down that battlefield and shoot at each other. Well, what happened to those people and to warfare after that? People started figuring out or using, of course they always use this, but I mean, in general, people flank, people come from the side, and that's pretty important in these Dota games because most of the time your opponent's attention is going to be focused on the front of the battle. They're going to be looking just to see what's directly in front of them when they're making decisions. So if you can come from behind, or if you can cut off their squishier heroes like supports that are most likely to be in the back, that also is a pretty good effective tactic of maximizing your hero, especially when you're on a burst damage hero like Lina. So I like that you did that there, whether by accident or not, and it's something that players of Lina or any other hero should be aware of. So you have a lot of gold here, 4,500 in fact. Are you going into assault directly or heart?
Heart. This was hard. I'm saving for a heart.
Okay. We are 40 minutes into the game, so I'm not sure if this is what you were thinking, but often people will save up some gold to make sure they can buy back in case they lose, because the longer the respawn cooldowns are going into the game, there was an opportunity there for you to maybe Laguna the Weak. Oh, you did get him.
Very nice.
So I think you were hesitating there because you weren't sure if he had the Lincolns up. Is that right?
Yeah, I was thinking that it may proc the Lincolns.
Okay. Yeah, that is the value of a Lincoln
Let's
Sphere.
burn.
Even though it does only block one spell, and sometimes you say, hey, it doesn't make sense to get a Lincoln Sphere because it's just blocking one spell, like, who cares? People can take it off. Well, sometimes you're not sure in the chaos of a fight whether the Lincoln Sphere has been taken off. And if you're not sure, you might just not end up targeting that hero at all. So that having that Lincoln's nearly saved the Weaver's life there, even if the Lincoln's wasn't even active at that time. So that's the value of that pickup there for a lot of heroes who don't want to be bursted down. As I see you're finishing up your heart now. So that gives you 2,500 HP, and that makes you... You don't have much armor, but it takes a lot more to kill you now. So this is clear here, you're transitioning full on into a carry build, basically.
Yeah. This game stretched for like an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, we had troubles in some part in late game. Our team fights, our warding. Yes, it's like we forgotten about the ward in late game. So I told Shaman to buy some, place them.
Okay.
Regeneration.
I noticed that you guys haven't taken Roshan yet. Did you just feel unsafe about doing it, or did anybody suggest it?
We didn't have any ward, so we couldn't do it.
Okay, so that's a good point that he brings up there. When to do Roshan, that's a choice that can often hurt some teams, or whether they do it at a bad time and get jumped, or if they don't do it. And it's a good general rule to follow is you need to have wards on the high ground and have dewarded them, or their heroes need to be dead for a sufficient period of time, like their key heroes, in order for you to risk a Roshan. So I think it's been a good decision so far in this game for your team to not do it. So what I'm going to do now is, I think there's a fight going on here mid. After this fight, I'm going to increase the game speed to 2x because I kind of want to see what happens. And we've talked about many of the points of playing Lina and the decisions that you made this game. So I kind of want to just see how this game goes out.
Alright.
Here you are again. I like this positioning. You're waiting in the fog, in the trees where they can't see you. You're behind them instead of in the front. So Pudge is not going to try to hook you, or he's not going to accidentally hook you out. And you're going to wait for your opportunity here.
Structures are fortified.
Yeah. This area, Deep got hooked, so that was kind of sad.
And there's very nice play there. That's exactly what we're talking about. You didn't get the blink off. You did use yourself to save you from the spells and give your allies a chance to respond. It looks like they're going to try to bring down the Weaver. And you're tanky enough with that heart that it really took some time. You still have your ultimate. Kind of accidentally pulled the creeps away there. And that's another point that I want to talk about. Sometimes when your opponent is pushing and you can't fight them off directly, what you want to do is pull the creeps or cut the creep wave to stop them from pushing and stop them from having to tank the buildings or anything themselves. In this case, of course, it wasn't enough to save the barracks because that team fight did go disastrously for your team. So you guys have to come back and you're fighting from behind. But you are putting out some pretty nice damage, it seems, even without real attack speed items. And you're suffering a minus 45 actually from the Venge's passive from dying. But you did get a chance to regroup, buy yourself some time to regen with the heart. And you did drive them off, even though they did get the barracks. So, what's your mindset at this point? You guys are down one set of barracks, and things don't seem to be going too well. What are you telling your team, and what are you thinking at this point?
I was saying just keep going on. It's just one lane. It's just freshly destroyed barracks. We can still come back with them. They're kind of like squishy, and maybe we can pick them off one by one, like this Wind Ranger.
Yeah, that was a really nice double stun there. Managed to pick up both kills. That was a great play.
Yeah, it was lucky that Luna came in and tried to save Wind Ranger, but he died instead.
I also like the way that you ran up there from the Weaver. Instead of just running up through the lane where he can see you, you decided to run through the trees and the fog of war. Again, just making it more difficult for your opponent to track you down and see you as the Weaver is cornered by your allies and killed. So that was pretty good there. I loved how you played that there, and that obviously, you know, helped put your team back into it. Yeah, this is one thing I see, especially when I play games with friends at like the 3 or 4K level. People get pessimistic and they give up way too soon. Games truly aren't over most of the time till they're truly over. I mean, I myself have played in a game where the other team got mega creeps, they got super cocky, their 6-slotted Phantom Lancer bought back and TP'd at us, and we managed to kill them a second time and thrown them and win the game. The games are usually never over until they're over, and even if they are, you benefit and grow more as a player by being determined and playing them out and just seeing what you can do. If you develop this mindset where you see every game and every situation as a challenge to be overcome or to get the most out of as you possibly can, you're not only going to win more games, which for those of you concerned about MMR and ranking is going to mean more points, but you're going to get better as a player. You don't get better as a player by only playing games where you're beating people down and having a lot of fun. If you want to improve, you have to accept whatever situation you're dealing with and try to come back from it. And it looks like you guys are going to get a set of barracks here after that crucial Weaver kill, and he didn't have a buyback.
Bottom barracks have fallen.
Yeah, I was telling them to focus just the racks, but they were going on the heroes, like that Slard. He got picked off instead.
Yeah, that Stark chased, but I think it ended up being good in the long run because he tied up 3 enemy heroes trying to kill him, and you did get the barracks. So yeah, there's a direct example right there. Losing a set of barracks is demoralizing usually, but it's nothing that you can't come back from. And there are some small advantages, actually, to losing a set of barracks. For example, that lane's always pushed, so you're going to get limited farm out of it, obviously, from the reduced gold. But your opponents are also likely to get less farm from it because that wave's never going to be pushed in range for them to farm. So, see every game situation, barracks or not, as an opportunity. And you did get a Desolator here. So, interesting choice. It does give you more damage, of course, on whatever single target you're focusing on. Just a small point, it looks like you are going for the Assault. I would have liked to see you get the Assault sooner, actually, because the Assault's reduction in armor is almost the same. It's actually -5 enemy armor compared to 7 for Desolator, and of course it gives you a ton of armor since you are a low armor hero, and it gives your allies armor, and it gives you a lot of attack speed. So I would have liked to see you get the Assault first, just because it's not like super early and you don't need necessarily the damage versus the team-wide effects. But I still think it's a decent pickup.
Oh, yeah, in this part, I got my Desolator already. I was thinking of going into Roche solo, but I was waiting for them to take the rack. I mean, we're gonna defend first before I go into Roshan, because there's some point in the game that I went into Roshan solo. I soloed Roshan, and yeah, there's a team fight.
Dire have reinforced their structures.
Yep, so at this point in the game, some of their heroes are starting to have BKBs now, so it's often very dangerous for you to go immediately in and commit yourself too early as Lina, because if you go in, try to nuke them, they have BKB, and then you can't kill them, then that's a problem, obviously. So I like that you waited a bit on the edges of the fight there for some of the BKBs and stuff to go down, for people to get out of position. And then you do have a heart, so you went back to base, I think, just to get mana. You probably didn't need to do that because you didn't have your ultimate, and
Bottom barracks have fallen.
you did come back eventually, but not in time to save your barracks. Your team really struggled there,
Dire's
and
bottom
it looks like you're
barracks
going to
are under
lose
attack.
another set of barracks. So the set that you just took just
Dire's
got
bottom barracks have
retaken by the
fallen.
enemy, and they're up one set of barracks again.
That was clear for me that we can defend that because Lark was dead. No one else was gonna tank, so we decided to like just back off and give it. But when we saw Pudge was alone, we tried to pick him off, pay the price of being left.
Here's the solo Roche, right?
Yep.
Alright, so I would say this is a bit of a risky play because 3 of them are still alive, and you only just now see that the Weaver is top, although that gives you the opportunity to do it. But sometimes you have to make sneaky plays and take risks in order to win the game or secure important objectives. The other team, I think, should have gone straight for Roshan after that fight because they need
Dire's
Aegis
middle tower
on
is
their crucial
under
heroes,
attack.
but they opted not to. So you took advantage of that mistake, and of course, if they were doing it, you could have just blinked into your death there,
Dire's
but
top tower is
they
under
weren't,
attack.
so that worked out. And that was another good point that you brought up there with the barracks. Some teams don't know, or often I'll see this in pub games, they're not sure when they can't take an objective what to do. If you're outmanned and you're going to lose a barracks or a tower, especially the tier 2 towers, which are really hard to defend usually, because they're out on like the high ground for your opponent and you're defending from the low ground, it's better to just give those objectives to the other team in exchange for losing nothing. Because if we think about it, what's better? You losing the barracks or tower by itself, or you losing all your heroes and also losing the barracks or tower?
Well,
Obviously,
technically,
you don't want to
Roshan
lose
didn't
both.
really fall.
So
More like implode.
yeah, it was a good decision there. It was a play of discipline for you to say, hey, we're going to lose our barracks. I'm going to make sure that we don't feed or die here, but we are going to pick off the retreating heroes.
Yeah, that's what we did with Pudge. He was left out. He didn't have any mobility items except the Force Staff though.
Yep, and of course you were being careful with that blade mail. The blade mail can really be a problem if you ult into it. You'll take a ton of damage yourself, but Pudge was low and you didn't have your ult, so it wasn't a problem for you to right-click him. And of course that's what the heart does too, right? It gives you some more breathing room so that you don't have to worry too much about blade mail instantly killing you.
Yeah.
Another team fight here, a good stun from you, some good anticipation with the light strike rate. Again, this goes into fighting into Fog of War, which you're clearly very keen on. Instead of running at them, you let them come up the hill into what they couldn't see, and then that helped you land your stun. So you want to use all kinds of these little tricks to help land your skill shots, either hero setup, comboing with other heroes, or abusing Fog of War and location. like coming from a spot they don't expect you from, and that helps you as a Lina land your stuns. In addition to, of course, obviously just mechanical skill. It's a hero that's a lot about, as many skill shot heroes are, anticipation. And it looks like you're really wreaking havoc here. You're doing a ton of damage, and you're hitting your spells and still surviving and getting out when you have an Aegis. So your team seems to have swung things around. You guys are winning the team fights for the most part, so that's good.
Middle tower is under attack.
Yeah, it's gonna take like. We didn't really accomplish a goal here. We just took the tier 2. That's it. We didn't take the racks itself because we were so low. We couldn't like really go to their high grounds.
I'm gonna turn you up. I'm gonna turn the game up to 2x speed now. If you want to go ahead and do that with me, doing it in 3,
Looks like
2,
Radiant
1.
closed the blast doors.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Radiant's middle tower has fallen.
So the big team fight breaks out here. You get swapped, you get hooked in, and I thought your Aegis expired, but it didn't. So nice job there.
Back
Also, when
out.
your Aegis is dead, the respawn timer will usually buy your blink dagger enough cooldown to be used and come back in. And right now, just like just your positioning is good. You're always on the edges of the fight, able to drop your damage when it's time. You're kind of giving them the rope-a-dope, snaking in and out of the fight as you see fit. You're up to 7,200 gold, and it looks like you guys you're forcing buybacks out of them, but you're still winning the battles. So things are going really well. You're about to fly in your Assault Caress, and you guys are just firmly on the comeback trail. So that not giving up has definitely paid off. And what are you thinking item-wise here? Are you going to get any more items, or is this your final build?
I changed my Yules to Hex Sheepstick. Yeah, I just misclicked that part there. I used my ult on a creep.
Yeah, that's something that happens. You're not going to get too upset about it. Everybody does that. Even professional players. But yeah, the Hex upgrade, I like it. It takes away some of the move speed, but you're already pretty quick, and you might be getting a Boots of Travel soon. And also, Hex is like the grown-up version of the Yules, right? It's just a better version. Although it may not have the same utility in all situations, it's still pretty good. And I do like that you saved some money here for buyback.
Yeah, I got like 7k on that Radiant tier 3 fight. So when I bought my,
You still
I
have
had-
like more than 2k left over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom, there it goes.
So of course late game is usually volatile because heroes are dead for so long, so taking fights usually means losing objectives. And some people see that as not a positive thing, like it's too easy to throw or lose games, but I like that because that just means that you have to play more cautiously and more disciplined, and every mistake that you make matters more. Like you can't get team wiped. You have to be smart about managing your buybacks and accounting for enemy buybacks. So I think late game is a whole different set of skills from like necessarily the lane phase and early game. Your position means everything in late game fights. Your choice of fights and numbers and who you can kill means everything. It's just a whole different set of skills to become a good late game player. And I think you're showing our viewers here a pretty good job in this episode of what you're doing that makes you successful in this late game. You made item choices, you thought far ahead and accounted for items that would be likely to keep you alive and keep you effective. You saved buyback. Your positioning in these fights is usually really good. You're never getting horribly caught, except for when you got swapped into the base when you had Aegis. So again, that's good resource management. You have the Aegis, you have an extra life. Why not make them blow some spells to kill you, and you'll still come back? So I think you're showing like pretty good understanding of the game. You haven't been playing for very long, but you're doing a lot of things right here, and that's something that players can definitely learn from.
Yeah, this part here, Luna bought back and tried to teleport top, and we tried to cut him off, but we couldn't find her. And it would be so good if we killed her that area there.
Yeah, there's a huge patch of woods there, so it's a good place for people to hide. That's where I like to call that area the rat's nest. That's usually where the rats are.
Yeah. So yeah, there. I got my side of vice
Regeneration.
and Roche is up.
Yep. You did not have the buyback at this point, even though you had the cooldown ready.
Yeah.
So that's that might be a situation where you're like getting the item is just more important to you, or you're thinking, hey, if I just don't die for a little bit, farm more creeps, or maybe if we get this Aegis, then it might not matter if I have buyback. But it looks like they're not going to give you time, and they're
Yeah.
going to do into this. Let's go back to 1x speed for this last fight.
Tower has dire locked down.
All right, I'm back on 1x.
All right.
It's another item that I might have considered getting for you since you're going a carry build. Actually, yeah, the worst case scenario kind of came true. You ended up not having a buyback for this fight. Is actually a BKB. Because carry heroes usually get BKBs for obvious reasons. They don't want to get disabled or stunned. And in terms of defenses, I mean, you're pretty tanky, but the BKB lets you just get away with so much. Like, you don't get hit by the lucent beams from the ult, you don't get shackled, you don't get stunned. There's a lot of things that the BKB can help you with. You don't get rotted and slowed. So maybe BKB would have been a good choice for you there. I'm not sure what you could replace, but this is an interesting choice of items from Lina. I haven't seen this many items on Lina actually in a long time. And this is something that comes up often. People talk about how it's hard to climb MMR as a support player. I would say that if you're playing a support hero, you still have to do your job to be effective as a support. You still have to be, I would say, going around ganking, checking the runes, making sure that your core heroes have farm. And not just making a decision every game, jumping the gun and saying, hey look, I'm just going to have to carry this game, so I'm going into carry items. But it is a fine art to kind of know when you should make that transition and whether your hero justifies it. Some heroes that are supports you would just about never justify going into a carry role because their skill set doesn't fit it. Lina is one of those heroes where you can make that decision, and I think here most of the support duties were taken by your Shadow Shaman. You might have been able to help with that, and you might have been able to optimize your items some more to be a carry, but ultimately I think it was a good decision, and it definitely helped your team in the long run because it just makes you a threat as the game goes on, that they have to deal with you and kill you. You've got 25 armor and 3000 HP, so it's not that easy to kill you, and in some cases you're dishing out more damage than some of their carries just because you end up attacking so fast.
Yeah, this part here I was saving a buyback. I think I died. Yeah, I died twice more, I think. I died once, I don't know. So we were preparing for the last fight to push them off.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that was my last death. I didn't die anymore after this.
Alright, and you see the Weaver up here. Are you gonna go for him or no? You probably think he has help, right?
Yeah. I had no vision on him. I couldn't find him. But when he's on lane, I don't have anything to pop the Lincolns except for my hex.
Yeah, and then
So-
obviously he'll react to that and probably walk away from it. So
Yeah.
it's a good idea to be careful here and play safely with the information that you have. And you might also be expecting them to push top at this point because that's your last lane of barracks. So you might be thinking, if I go on him, they're probably all behind him. It might be a bait, and I don't want to do that. So good decision
Yeah.
there.
Do it with Dire's middle tower is under
So
attack.
yeah, I think these are the most fun and satisfying games that you can play, right? When you come back to win, probably more fun than
Blessings upon a loyal
stomps
warrior.
or things that everybody has to play together to give you a chance. Here's one other thing though about playing with advantages or disadvantages. Usually if you push a team's barracks and they haven't just given up or been demoralized, you're going to have to play even tighter and more cautiously to crack high ground because the Sun Tzu saying goes, never fight an army that's cornered, because they have their backs against the wall and they have no choice but to defend the small bit of territory in their base. They're going to fight together. They're always going to be they're going to be enjoying that uphill advantage, and it's going to be harder to kill them at that point because they have their backs against the wall, and that works both psychologically and in terms of actual game space. So I do think that helped your team this game. They got a little cocky and they started assuming that they would just keep breaking you because they took those first 2 sets of Raxes. It wasn't too difficult for them to do that. So there's one thing to watch out for. Finishing games is an issue that I see a lot in the 3 and 4K brackets. It's a problem because people don't have the patience to just use their advantages in map control and farm to just get huge. Like this Weaver right now has at least 2 slots that I think could be replaced. I think the Radiance could certainly be replaced because it's a good farming item, but it doesn't add that much utility or damage later on. And of course the Ring of Aquila could be replaced, but he's been a bit slower on that. It's 67 minutes and he's not 6-slotted because he's died a few times, he's gotten caught, he's had to buy back. And I think, if the other team had just very patiently converted their advantage, they might have been able to win, but they rushed the gun a little bit, and that just gave you guys a chance to come back. And even this Slark has got some items now. He's got defensive items, as you mentioned. Looks like he's going for a heart on top of his Scotty and Lincoln Sphere, along with Blink for the mobility and initiation. So yeah, the window is kind of closed, I think, for the other team. Although you guys can still lose if you lose one fight because you actually lost your top melee racks. You guys are on your last barracks. So there is some tension still in this game.
Yeah. This was like the last part. I mean, the last. Let's say in the movie, it's the last episode, last fight, last thing. They're all top. They're gonna go get the last ranks there.
Yep. Deep scouting them out with the Invis rune and the gem that he has. And so here's one other thing I want to point out. I don't know if you guys did it this game, but sometimes if you're in a situation where multiple lanes are pushing against you because you don't have barracks there, and they're coming on your last lane, sometimes you want to jump them before they get to your base. Like, you don't want to wait for them to get to your base. If they get to your base, it gives them several advantages. They can be patient and just stay out there. They can suicide and rush your barracks. In this case, it's last range barracks, so it's not healing. Only has 400 HP on it, so they can rush it to try to get mega creeps. And also allows them to play the patient game at the other lane split push in because they have more pressure there. And it looks like Deep does go out. So you guys did make a decision, it looks like, to fight them outside of your base.
Yeah. Because he told us that he's gonna die for the initiation and go buy back. Then that won us the fight. And we rushly ported to the ancient because it's gonna get wrecked.
Yeah, looks like Luna tried to sneak in through the back door there with that Aegis and the Boots of Travels. So yeah, that was a nice play from Deep. Again, that goes to resource management for winning games. They made a dual good decision there. The first was to fight outside the base so that you can't just let them split push you and they don't get to set up and they may not also be expecting it. The second decision was to say, actually die for the team, productive deaths. I mean, you hear people say all the time, space created, but what does that really mean? So that death there wasn't space creation, but it did allow them to take a fight in a place that they wanted to take a fight, and of course he had the buyback, so he could just get right back into it with a long-range hookshot. So that was a heads-up play there by the Clockwork. That's the kind of game-winning decision that you need to help your team, and it's an issue of efficient resource management, using the tools that you do have, in this case a buyback, to get the best fight and situation possible for your team. So I really like that play there. I'm not sure about the Luna's decision to go where she did, and the other team could be saving their own buybacks and popping them strategically at the right time, and it looks like, are you going to get you do get the Aegis, and go for objectives or try to finish her off? Looks like, no, there's a cod.
Finish her off, yeah, he got caught.
Yep, and Lina does not have buyback. She cannot afford buyback. So that ended up being a huge kill there, and I think that pretty much clinched the game, right? You guys are you gonna get megas here, or are you gonna throw?
Oh, we've thrown it. We won this part here. I mean, we already raxed everything. Let the shaman defend.
Okay, so this is another decision that you'll see sometimes when you're on the enemy's high ground. Obviously, they don't have a buyback on the Luna, or they would have used it, but go for mega creeps, or do you go for throne? And throne, usually in a more desperate position you would do it, or in a position where they're dead for a long time. In this case, I think it was a good call by you guys to not go. And there's a Weaver buyback. Is it going to be a dieback, though?
He escaped because I didn't have much attack speed there. Couldn't really dish out damage. But he died.
Never happened
Oh,
again.
he didn't. She didn't yet.
Yeah, and their team's trying back desperately here. And well, that was I don't know if that was an intended effect, but the Desolator reduces the armor on its targets, including buildings. So you kind of just devastated the buildings there with the help of your Desolator, and that made them go down quicker. So now you guys have the advantage, and it's just a matter now of you have the win. You just have to not throw. You have to watch out for sneaky thrown attempts. You have your buybacks ready, and some of their heroes are still dead, although you don't have deep. So you guys are moving in for looks like the kill here.
Yeah, we're going for the throne. I mean, for the towers. We decided that we're gonna end this now, or we're gonna get. We don't wanna reset again, because if we reset, that kind of might be risky.
That's an excellent point. Just not giving your opponent a chance to possibly come back, not giving yourself room to maybe make a mistake. You're forcing their hand, kind of. Of course, their heroes that could buy back or come back to life did. Is the Slark? Oh, that's an interesting force staff there. Yeah, and a very clutch Ethereal Blade to save him from some attacks. That's another added utility of Ethereal Blade. The Slark does go down, but you can actually use it on your allies to save them from attacks. So it looks like this game's pretty exciting. They're gonna do a death push here, and Slark, does he have buyback? He
Here,
does.
I'll tell you here. This is kind of like a thrilling part.
Dyer's top
I'm
barracks are
I
under
was
attack.
looking at the bottom. It's being pushed. It's gonna be a trick.
Dyer's top
I'm
barracks have
tricking
fallen.
them to go in our
Radiant now have
ancient, and
mega creeps.
I'm just gonna port out to bottom. I bought a travel. Yeah, gonna port out bottom pretty soon.
Oh, this game is tense, man. You guys both have mega creeps. I haven't seen a game like this for a long time.
Yeah, this area here I ported. I don't know when. Yeah, there. Ported and racks it.
Radiant's middle tower has fallen.
All right, so there's another
Ancients.
heads-up play there. Some of them were retreating, some of them were dead. You decided to come in and try to finish off the throne. There it is.
Victory.
So, nice hard-fought, come-from-behind win. It was really exciting for a bit because there were mega creeps going for both teams, but you did a good job of paying attention to where the creeps were. Many concepts that we went over in this game, your item choice on a support, when to transition to carry, or what heroes it's justified on doing that, and the position on your hero, what your hero fights most effectively from. I think we learned a lot watching this game, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, Spartacus, for being my guest on this second episode of Game Clinic.
Thank you so much. Korean barbecue, that's your in-game name. You helped us a lot in the tournament games and stuff.
Alright, man, it's been great having you, and I'd love to do more episodes with you in the future. And that's all for today, so thank you very much.
All right. Bye bye.